In 1994, Oasis released the Whatever single, on which there was a B-side called It's Good to Be Free. And in 1997, they released the Do You Know What I Mean single. Both of these songs contained sections of Morse code mixed into the song, and for years, rumours have swirled about what that code might say. Owen Morris, in the sleeve notes to the master plan, says that the Morse code section that occurs in the outro of It's Good to Be Free is meaningless, as far as anyone knows. But the Morse code section that runs through the intro and the gap between the first two verses of Do You Know What I Mean has a few more clues. The BBC says this: some of the translated phrases in Do You Know What I Mean are believed to include pork pies and strawberry fields forever. But Noel Gallagher is none the wiser. And in Q magazine, September 97, Noel said this: the Morse code in the background was inspired by strawberry fields. We got hold of a code book and tried to tap out bugger all. To follow that line, don't look back because you know what you might see. But if anyone can tell me what we really said, please let me know. Profound logarithms. So today, I want to have a crack at actually figuring it out. What do those two sections of Morse code in those two songs actually say? And also, what were they intended to say? So the first step to solving this was I needed to isolate the Morse code from the original audio. I tried various options including stem splitting and various audio tricks, but in the end the most effective way was simply by hand and by ear. I worked through each track and made a marker track underneath, in which I put my own exact copies of all the Morse code beeps. Because the note of my added Morse code beep was different to the original, you could play it through and hear the weird kind of interval happening every single time, so I knew I'd got them all in the right place. And that also meant that after I'd gone through the track and made an exact copy of all the Morse code beeps, I could then mute the original and just be left with this. So after spending about 30 minutes doing that on the two tracks, I then rendered those individual Morse code audio files and fed them into this website, morsecode.world, which has an adaptive audio Morse decoder. So let's start with the translation of the Morse code from It's Good to Be Free. Prepare to be amazed. Okay, so what Owen Morris said appears to be accurate. That one seems to be meaningless. So let's go on now to the codes from Do You Know What I Mean? According to the interviews, this one is believed to be the one that has some real messages in it. Profound. So that was phase one of the experiment. What do the messages mean? Seemingly, absolutely nothing. But now we move on to phase two. It's fairly well documented that at the time of the making of both songs we're looking at today, the band were into fairly heavy drug use. Typing Morse code requires a certain degree of practice and skill and timing. What if these codes were intended to say something, but the band were just too out of it and inexperienced with Morse code to type them in with the right timing? You can see by just looking at the waveforms, the timing for both these sets of code is just totally erratic and all over the place. So the next thing to figure out was, what would these codes say if the timing was a little more consistent? To try and answer this question, I converted all the code into text and I fed it into ChatGPT. I told the AI to use a bit of creative license when it came to the space of the gaps between signals, and to just experiment around with the placing of gaps to see if different Morse code words might be formed that make a little more sense. And keeping all the beeps the same but just rearranging the gaps a little bit, here's the translation that ChatGPT came up with for It's Good to Be Free. Test, test, C to rest is rain L. Now that last tiny bit of the phrase is rain L that just doesn't mean anything. That occurs where the Morse code in the original audio is fading out, so I had to kind of stop halfway through because Bonehead's accordion comes in and kind of drowns it out at that point. So really, REINL at the end there, we don't really know what that actually says because we haven't got the complete code. But you can see that the rest actually kind of makes sense. So now, let's go on to attempt the same thing with the Do You Know What I Mean code. Now on this one, I thought perhaps I might have a key to kind of unlock the wonky timing they were using, because Noel said in that interview that towards the end of all the coding, they tried to type in bugger all. So I asked ChatGPT to try and see if anywhere in that code, particularly towards the end, there was a series of dots and dashes that could be translated as bugger all, but there wasn't. So instead, I just asked ChatGPT to do the same thing that I had done with the Morse code from It's Good to Be Free. We had that same series of wildly erratic and inconsistent gaps, so I asked the AI to keep the dots and dashes the same, but just to rearrange the spaces to see if they could actually form words and coherent sentences. And this is what I got for the full Do You Know What I Mean code. I see I7, I see 5, the bus is true for it. Now, of course, I am having a bit of fun with it here, and I think the answer to the Do You Know What I Mean Morse code actually does lie in that interview that Noel Gallagher gave, and I think he was actually having a little bit of a laugh with his readers. In the interview we looked at, the only clue Noel Gallagher gave us to any of the phrases in the Morse code in Do You Know What I Mean was the phrase bugger all. And now, having broken down the Morse code fragments we've got, fed them into translators and had AI try to rearrange everything to make any sense out of it, I think what he meant by that was it means bugger all. It doesn't mean anything. Truth be told, if I'm being totally honest, I think through doing this I've kind of established that they are just sound effects. There's not really any specific message there. I did find it really interesting to read what AI was able to piece together for the Morse code in It's Good to Be Free. But really, if I'm being totally honest, I think we can lay the mystery to rest and say this is just a sound effect. However, you might think you can rework the code into something that does actually make a little more sense. If you would like to download my audio transcription of each of the Morse codes, they are available as audio files for Patreon supporters as a bonus extra to this video. The link is in the description. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed seeing that one cleared up and your suspicions probably confirmed about the Oasis Morse codes. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. And as always, a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. If you would like access to an ever-growing body of exclusive content and to my ad-free archive, the link is in the description, and hopefully I'll see you inside.